and we now have an IMAX theater in our living room. So, okay, so I'm trying to do a better job at this like cool transition thing, like good video people, creators, whatever you call them, are supposed to do. So I think the last time that we were in this space, I was talking about how the floors were gonna get done, and now they're done. Look how good they look. They look so good. I am so excited about these floors. It's unreal. So these are the original hardwood floors from the 50s. These were hidden underneath some floating laminate floors. I had a local flooring guy come in and refinish, restore, and stain these floors, and they just look so delicious. So now that the floors are done, I am going to be focusing my energy on creating a fireplace for this wall. So now that the floors look super yummy and they're done, this whole vibe of this room is really coming together. We really wanted like dark floors, bright walls. And one other thing that Chris and I always spoke about when we talked about having a house was that we really wanted a fireplace to hang our TV on. And while we agree on the fireplace, we don't really agree on the size of the TV, but I think he's gonna win this one because the size of the fireplace insert that I just ordered is very big. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So our house has a gas hookup, so we could have gone with a gas fireplace insert. However, those are really expensive and we wanted something very wide, and gas fireplace inserts in that range were like $6,000, $4,000, $8,000, and that's just not in the budget right now. So instead, we decided to purchase an electric fireplace insert. We definitely splurged on the one that we purchased, but it was still way cheaper than going with a gas insert. I want to build an actual surround for the fireplace, so that is what I'm going to be doing in this video. Now, I'm well aware that spring is basically here and summer's coming, and like most people aren't building fireplaces in the spring or the summer because they're already warm months. But I really want to get this project done before we move all of our stuff into this space. And honestly, I'm just being proactive for holiday season, because now when it starts to get cold out, we're already gonna have our fireplace done, right? At least that's what I tell myself to make myself feel better about the fact that I'm gonna be publishing a fireplace video in the spring. I am so excited about this project, but before I can get started, I want to snap a few photos of this space and start kind of doodling a little bit on my iPad and planning out what I really want it to look like. So that's where we're gonna get started on this project. Let's do it. I'm so excited, so excited. I partnered up with my amazing friends at Dremel to help make this project come to life. All right, friends, so I am well aware that A, it has been a while since I posted anything, I've missed you so much, and B, that I am all over the place with this home renovation process. Last time we checked in, I was working on the bathroom, but now we ran into a snag in the bathroom and I'm waiting on some things to be delivered, so I figured while I'm in limbo, might as well work on something else. And this fireplace was actually the perfect project to keep me busy while I was obsessing over tracking numbers and waiting for things to come for the bathroom and installing things in the bathroom, and we'll get there when we get there. But anyway, let's focus on the fireplace build because this build was a lot of fun. I missed woodworking projects so much. Now, this particular fireplace design is something that Chris and I have been dreaming up together for a little bit for this space. But yeah, as you can see, I took some photos, I brought those photos over to my iPad, and then I kind of doodled out what we wanted in the space. Obviously not to scale, but just to get a little visual reference. We really wanted something large and in charge that would be the focal point of the room, especially since it is the first wall you see when you walk into the house. And we knew that we wanted to do some sort of like black rustic wood look as well. I'm not sure about a mantle quite yet. When you see the size of the TV, you'll see there may not be enough room for a mantle, but that's something we can figure out in the long run. But yeah, once I was happy with the design, it was really time to start planning everything out and time to make a shopping list and time to get started. So one thing I've definitely learned the hard way about living in an older house is that literally nothing is straight. The walls aren't straight, the floors are crooked, like nothing is level. So to help with measuring out this project, Dremel sent me their Home Solutions 3-in-1 digital laser measurer, and this thing is dope. So this tool in particular is a 3-in-1 tool that has a laser measuring for distance and area, a tape adapter for measuring short distances, and a circumference and wheel adapter for measuring uneven surfaces. So I started out with that wheel adapter on the measurer and took some measurements to figure out what the ideal width of this fireplace would be, before then looking for the studs and then figuring out what was actually gonna work. Hey! Things are about to heat up. This whole situation is slightly wider than what I wanted the original fireplace to be. I was originally planning for 70-inch wide because we have a 60-inch wide insert, but this is 82 inches wide. And honestly, I'd rather do this and know that I'm like hitting studs than start to like Swiss cheese these plaster walls. I'm gonna stick with the slightly wider fireplace, and that just means Chris is gonna ask for a bigger TV. Yeah, this looks good, so let's get started. Now, once I had figured out the width of the fireplace, I then took that digital laser measure and then measured the height of the fireplace. And honestly, this little digital measure was a time saver and a lifesaver because, like I said, the floors are not straight in this house, and I was able to get a very accurate measurement within about 1/8 of an inch of how tall things needed to be, which meant that I was able to shave off just enough to be able to create those frames and lift them up without scraping my ceiling. In terms of frame construction itself, I did start with my 2 side walls, and if you're interested about measurements or tools or supplies or materials, I do have a full breakdown on my website. You can check out the link below this video in the video description to get there, and I will also be selling some publishable PDF plans for anybody who'd like to print out plans and try to follow them on your own build. But yeah, so I built those side frames just using regular old wood screws, and then I attached the side walls to the actual wall through those studs, and I used a level to make sure that everything was nice and straight. I obviously also hung all over them like a jungle gym for a strength test. So my fireplace came with really awesome instructions with the dimensions that I need for the opening of the fireplace, as well as a fun little diagram right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna now build the big framed wall in the front, but before I attach it to the other 2 frames that I just attached to the studs, I am going to make sure I basically build this opening in that freestanding wall. I think that makes sense. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. I feel like it's gonna make more sense when I actually do it. I'm very visual, so that's gonna help, but let's go build that build that third side. Quick disclaimer, one thing that is super important when building a fireplace surround for whatever insert you're gonna be using, whether it's electric or gas, you wanna make sure that the specs are going to fit whatever fireplace you purchased. So even though my plans are going to be tailored towards the particular unit that I purchased, I recommend double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking the dimensions of your own fireplace insert before starting on a build like this one. Also, something else that I needed to add to this particular wall was a little nook, because we're going to be putting a lot of like our entertainment system stuff behind the TV. Yes, technical term, entertainment system stuff behind the TV, and I needed a little opening for that, so I did build that into the top of the wall. Once that third wall was built, I propped it on up, made sure to do the very important happy dance that goes along with every awesome, successful project, and then attached it to those sides using some wood screws. I also made sure to check level a lot as I was attaching this thing because that would stink. And once everything was level and looking strong, I did a little jungle gym strength test, and then I was happy enough to call it a day. Let's call it a day. Tomorrow's another one. See you then, friends. All right, so once that frame was built, my next piece of part that I wanted to focus on, wow, my brain doesn't work, was to build out the entertainment nook, which is going to be behind the TV. I used 2x4s and screws for this as well as some spacers, and I'm going to be laying some plywood on top of this at some point in the future. In hindsight, it probably would have been a lot easier to just build a box and then attach that box to the studs and the frame. But instead, I made a box. I just did it in little parts and it worked out really well. I also made sure to add some extra supports down below for places for me to nail the planks into later. But at this point, the framing was definitely done and it was time to move on with the help of an awesome friend who was in town for the day. Okay, frame is done. And now I want to be proactive and I want to paint the frame before I put my boards on the frame, because if there are any like little pieces, what's the technical term? Pieces, gaps in between the boards, then you won't see them. But I have some help today. My friend Jocelyn has come to help me. Yay! So she's gonna help me paint this fireplace. And it's gonna be awesome because A, I like having company and not doing things alone. Mm-hmm. And B, it's gonna go by so much faster.
That's what we always need.
Okay. So let's do it. Working with other maker friends is so much fun, and Jocelyn is seriously the coolest. Please go check out her work and what she does. She is so talented and has an amazing eye for design and makes such awesome things. Please go give her some love. She definitely deserves it. Hanging out with Jocelyn and getting to paint this fireplace frame with her was such a highlight of this project. I wish that she could stay around forever and ever because we totally crushed it. We knocked this thing out of the park so fast. Teamwork seriously makes the dream work. Once the frame of the fireplace was painted, it was time to move on to cutting the plywood that was going to go inside of the Nook. And my workshop at my new house is not set up yet. In fact, my kitchen's been doubling as my workshop recently. So having my Dremel Ultra Saw cordless compact saw around was so helpful because I was able to cut all of the plywood using this tiny little saw instead of having to lug all the plywood to my workshop, use my table saw, and then bring it on back. Once those pieces were cut though, I then painted them using actually leftover sample paint that I still had in my closet from some other projects, and weirdly enough, it ended up being the almost exact color of the planks I was using on the fireplace. Total happy accident. But yeah, I ended up doing about 3 coats of paint and I sanded in between each one to make everything nice and smooth. After letting those boards dry overnight, the next day I came back and I attached them to the Nook using my nailer and some force, but really mostly my nailer. And I did end up having one kind of small gap, so I filled that using some caulk and some paint later in the process. At this point though, it was time to make some magic happen and add the planks of wood to my fireplace, and I was so excited about this process. Now, I've used planks like this before, never in this like charcoal black color, so what I actually did was I mixed up all of the boxes so that no matter what I chose, it was random, because they just had different variations and I didn't want anything to look like it had a pattern to it. And then I just started grabbing some boards and attaching them to the front of the fireplace, using a level to make sure that each row was completely level as I went through the entire installation. Now, once it was time to get to a couple rows where I had to make some cuts, I did bring the boards back on over to that Ultra Saw and rip them down using the compact saw. Honestly, such a time saver. This thing is awesome, and because it's battery operated, I did not trip over any cords, so like that's a win. But once those boards were ripped down to size and then attached them to the fireplace using my brad nailer right on in to those 2x4 studs. Now, I actually only focused on the bottom half at first because I wanted to make sure that we could install the fireplace and that I could still reach around it. So once I was done with that, I called in help from my partner in crime, the dogs. Just kidding, and my dad, but also mostly the dogs. Legit though, this thing was heavy and was definitely a 2-person job, and I'm not going to go through all of the fine details on how we installed it because everybody's unit is going to be different, but shout out to Dad for his help on this one because it needed another person.
I gotta go home now, guys. It was nice seeing you.
I always feel like there's a point in every project I do where I get to a certain step in the install process and I start to get super excited because I start to see everything come together, and this was that moment. I was so excited. I wanted to celebrate. Titan, however, on the other hand, was totally fine just chilling in the back of the house and just watching me do all the hard work instead of helping. What a great help. But for real, I decided to end the day on a high note with a happy dance with my dude, 'Dude, 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 ' So I did this thing last night that I do all the time where in the middle of the night I like snapped out of bed with an idea for the project that I'm currently working on. So far so good. I'm really happy with this so far. I think it looks awesome. What I am gonna do though is, I was thinking about this yesterday. I wanna mount a TV here and I gotta like figure out stud placement for the mount. So I'm gonna probably like double up on these here. Not full ones, I don't think we need full ones here, but I'm gonna double up on some supports over there so that I have just like an extra insurance built in for whatever mount I choose for the giant IMAX size screen TV that's going up on our fireplace. So I'm gonna get started there and I'm gonna just add those and paint them up real quick, and then we're gonna finish this fireplace. I'm excited. Let's do it. I feel like I explained that okay with my cup of coffee in my hand as per usual. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to add a couple more studs just in case I needed some extra room for hanging things. But once those were up, it was time to finish installing the rest of the planks on the front of this fireplace. And for that, let's go to a satisfying time lapse. As you can see, one thing that I decided to add at some point were just some extra 2x4s in the back, and that was not for structural purposes. It was just so I had a couple of extra spots to nail some boards into. But once I was done with that, I then moved on to the sides and did the same thing. And since these boards were super warped, I knew that miters wouldn't look great on them. So instead, I went out and I got some corner moldings, and I went to Home Depot and brought these planks over for them to color match, and got 3 different shades of blacks and grays and painted the corners in these 3 different shades, adding a little bit of texture to make them look like aged wood so that they would match. I did at some point realize after installing them and taking a few steps back that they were a little lighter than I would have liked them to be. So after nailing them into the fireplace, I did go on back with a dried paintbrush dipped in some dark black paint to add some more texture, and they blended in beautifully. And taking it one step further, I also decided to frame out the Nook and paint any exposed edges of that as well. Okay, friends, so I was gonna show you how I made this and then talk about it via voiceover, but that's not as fun as hanging out on camera with you guys. So I needed to make an access panel back here so that I can reach behind the fireplace in case I need, I don't know, to access anything or like hide fun stuff back here, you know, like snacks or Sour Patch Kids. So to do that, I left open like 3 rows of planks. And I took those 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and attached them together using some 1x2 boards, very similar to how I've made custom signs in the past. And now I can literally just slide this on in here. It doesn't line up perfectly, but I wanted to leave like a lot of extra wiggle room in case anything moves or shifts. But you're not even gonna see it because this is actually wedged in between the wall and the fireplace, and there's gonna be a plant here, hopefully. So you're never gonna see it, but at least it's here, so if I ever need access to it, I just slide this back, pull it forward, and there you go. And then I can, you know, hide some goodies in there. Call it a day. We're just gonna keep that back there, you know, for safekeeping. All right, this project is done. While the project itself was done, there's one more thing we still had to tackle. So, I let Chris choose the size TV that he wanted for this fireplace. And we now have an IMAX theater in our living room. Who's coming over for movie night? All right, friends, check this out. While I'm still on the fence about the size of this IMAX movie theater screen in our living room, I am not on the fence about how much I am obsessed with this fireplace. I am so excited about it. I think it looks so cool in our house, and it felt really awesome to get back to a woodworking project and take a little bit of a breather from the home renovation, since that's kind of been a little stressful. I know that things are taking a little longer than I originally anticipated in this house, but that's kind of what happens when you do a lot of the work yourself, or if you're me with dad. And I really, really appreciate all the love and support and patience from all of you. I could not do any of this without all of you cheering me on. I seriously, seriously mean that from the bottom of my heart. I hope that you all enjoyed this project as much as I did. I really missed you guys so much, and I'm so happy to be back on track with filming and sharing content. And I promise that there will be a new video very, very soon on the channel. So if you are not subscribed, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell. I cannot wait to share all of the really awesome things I'm working on in this house, because trust me, I'm working on like 7 things at once as per usual. In the meantime though, friends, thanks so much for being awesome. As always, I will see you so soon with a new project. But until then, friends, happy DIYing.